The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, Episode 53.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hey everybody, I'm Father Andrew Kinstetter, aka Father Fett, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away, including the deeper themes and meanings. Today we are discussing the penultimate episode of the entire Star Wars Rebels show, so Season 4, Episode 14, A Fool's Hope, or as I've been mentally referring to it, the not calm before the storm.
Nice.
Joining me today on the panel are, first up, Angela Ciolana.
Hello, I'm here. Yay.
It's great to have you. We also have Thomas Sanherho with us this evening.
It's good to be here. We've all been having tech problems this week, so we're trying to get the recording better. So hopefully it's coming out that way.
It'll be great. And third and final this evening is Mike Creevy.
Good to be back.
It is good to have you back. It's been a few weeks.
Yeah, school starting and all that fun jazz. I just wasn't ready.
Yeah. Before we jump into the Rebels episode, there is just a few bits of news that we should at least mention. There's not a whole lot of discussion, but the big thing, of course, The Mandalorian Season 2 begins streaming on October 30th. So that's super, super exciting.
What day of the week is that? I forgot to check.
It's a Friday.
It's a Friday.
Okay.
So,
yeah,
and
Fridays again.
I don't think we've heard, but I think the assumption is that they'll be released weekly.
Okay.
If I remember right, with last year, one of them was released like early or like, I don't remember how that worked. It fell around the release of Rise of Skywalker.
Movies coming out.
Yeah, because it launched on, and it launched on Tuesday, or Disney Plus launched on Tuesday. Yep. So I think they had a Tuesday and a Friday one time or something.
So I think the assumption with this one is that it's released every Friday starting October 30th. So,
okay.
At that point, we will be reviewing each episode as it streams, and during the time that The Mandalorian Season 2 is streaming, our podcast will shift back to a weekly release during that time. So definitely, listeners, watch those episodes and tune in to us as we talk about them each week for that time period. So that's going to be exciting. There still is not a trailer, so
Have you been reading the news about this?
No.
So apparently there's something midway through the season that is problematic, and we're not really sure what that means, but it's some of the showrunners have been talking about this. And so there's like a problematic mid-season thing that they're saying required an entire rewrite of the trailer. So they had a trailer and they've had to rewrite the trailer, and they're rewriting part of the season and reshooting some of the season. So we'll definitely be up on that, and be paying attention to what it is that's changing, but I'm not sure what exactly that entails.
I was I was just happy that we haven't gotten a trailer yet, because I liked the not knowing what's coming.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that there's not serious issues that they have to rewrite or anything, but I guess we'll find out.
The way it's been played up is very coy, so I'm thinking it's something that maybe they had an overlap with another project that they've now decided to kind of split off on their own. That's what I'm kind of hoping for, like maybe Ahsoka appears and they didn't want that to happen in The Mandalorian, so now they're going to give her own show. Would be great.
I'm not going to cry if that's it.
I know, right? Yeah, I think it's either that or it's something to do with the Obi-Wan show that's coming up, and they weren't ready for the two of them to happen at the same time. Those are my two guesses.
This is also Filoni, and he's like an expert at saying everything and nothing.
Exactly.
I wonder if it was like I know, since you said, "Oh, this is Filoni," I remember seeing interviews with Sam Witwer where he would actually catch some chronological things that were in the script that Dave hadn't caught. And so he would be like, hey, Dave, this isn't right. And then be like, oh, yeah. So I wonder if it was something like that. Where, like, yeah, they just one detail that they didn't catch. And then somebody watched it and they were like, hey, what about this? Who knows? I'm very intrigued.
We'll see. I'm intrigued. I'm excited to see what it is that happens.
There's always a chance that they're just completely messing with us.
Oh, yeah. That's
Thankfully, none of this delays the premiere of season 2. So
yeah,
right.
That's one of the highlights.
They didn't give themselves a lot of wiggle room in October, though.
Right.
That's like,
I
still got it out October. It's still October.
One more day. Yeah.
See, now the thing I'm interested in is, so they kept the whole the child under wraps so well, right? And now there's like this, we don't have a trailer for the second season. Well, I'm interested what exactly that means, because maybe it's just that maybe they're throwing us off the case, like, oh yeah, we had to reshoot the trailer. Yeah, but there is no trailer. It's just the show's going to hit, and you don't get a trailer. You just have to watch the show.
But even all the supposed, like Ahsoka reveal and everything, none of those have been officially confirmed.
Right.
So yeah, we're still in this just probable, but just it could be just a misdirect.
What if that was all a lie? Ahsoka won't be on the show ever.
There'd be a lot of upset fans.
Like they're all behind the scenes after all that breaks, and they're like, guys, we got to get her into this thing quick.
Like, that's what it is, right?
Like, we're never going to be.
There was a big problem.
No, we were not going to do that. It's like Anakin's long lost cousin or something. No one, you're like, oh no, that's not cool at all. Like, we have a big surprise, and they're like, Ahsoka. Like, yeah, that's it.
Well, 7 weeks probably at this point before we can find that out. We'll have a lot more to say, I'm sure, with this closer to release date. So, of course, stay tuned. The other big thing that happened this past week was that the book Thrawn, the first book of the Thrawn Ascendancy, that's difficult to say, trilogy, Chaos Rising, released on September 1st. Are you guys, Mike, I imagine you might be into this. Are you, Angela and Thomas, are you into getting this book and this trilogy?
I probably will. I've been getting back into reading some Star Wars stuff, and it's good, which is refreshing, because there was a dearth of good Star Wars lit there for a little while, and I've forgotten how much I like it. I ate all the Star Wars I could when I was in high school, so it's nice to kind of have that refreshing. I actually like the decision they made to kind of tuck everything that came before away and say, okay, we're not going to do that right now. Let's start fresh and put everything back in order the way that the new canon is kind of fitting. I
was just going to say, I agree that the literature has been very good. I don't know about the entertainment budget in the era of COVID, though. I might have to wait for the library, but I am looking forward to reading it for sure.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I felt guilty because as I think I mentioned on the show a couple weeks ago, that I discovered, I discovered the library. I knew the library was a thing, don't get me wrong, but I didn't know, I didn't know that this is so dumb. I just didn't really, it didn't click that you could get audiobooks. And this just like really sank in this year, and my wife's showing me this app, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they have Star Wars audiobooks. And so I started listening to all of them. And as I told you guys before, what I didn't tell you was I was listening to way too many of them, like all at the same time. And I'm listening to like 7 or 8 novels in like a month. And I'm like, okay, moderation is a virtue. So I just, honest to God, it was like the beginning of August, I made this rule for myself that I was only going to listen to one Star Wars audiobook per month. And so, so September hits and I get a notice and I'm like, oh yeah, it's time to listen to Tarkin. So I downloaded James Luceno's Tarkin book. I start listening to that. And then I see The Descendants. I totally forgot it was coming out. So I jumped in to like put it in the queue, and it's like, this book has about a 12-week wait period.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh man. So I think I'm going to have to wait for it, but I'll get a notification at some point that it's time for Ascendancy. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I will begin reading it as soon as I get it. Normally, if this was any normal book release, I would have just gone to Barnes and Noble the day of release and gotten it. But because this is Timothy Zahn, he works with his local bookstore. And so you can actually,
that?
I've done it. I've done it for ever since I found this website. It's Winter River Books and Gallery. It's up in Washington State. But you can order a book from Zahn, and he will personalize it and autograph it for you, and then they will ship it out to you. So I think that's estimated to arrive. I'm hoping at this point. I'm hoping Tuesday with Labor Day. But so that's still coming. So I've gotten many of my Timothy Zahn books personalized and autographed, and some of them I've actually met him in person and brought books for him to sign.
Oh, cool.
That's really cool.
So yeah, I haven't started reading it yet, but I'm super excited. And one of the things that has me excited about it is that it's a trilogy from the get-go. So right. Timothy Zahn can plot out characters over 3 books rather than like with the Thrawn trilogy. Those were standalone books, and they didn't know if they were going to do a sequel or make it into a makeshift trilogy. So he couldn't set up the character arcs in a trilogy format. So, but with these, he's gonna have the entire freedom to do that. So it should be a really good trilogy.
That's cool.
So yeah, so that happened. Circling back to Rebels, I know this isn't really a news thing, but it was kind of a fun thing that I got to participate in today. Vanessa Marshall was doing a Instagram live autograph signing. Ironically, not for Star Wars, but for Young Justice, because she does the voice of Black Canary in Young Justice.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
And so I had pre-purchased an autograph for her to sign, and so she was signing them all live on her Instagram feed and responding to comments and everything. And so when she got to mine and recognized my name from the cameo that we had on May 4th, cool. And was very very excited to see that name. And she gave a shout out to the podcast. So
nice,
great, just pretty cool. She's a pretty awesome actress.
Well, does she do? Because I'm not a gamer, but I've been following some of the Squadrons footage and stuff, and I know she appears in that. Does she do the voice for the game? It sounds like her, but it's just a quick little shot of her, and I was like, holy crap, that's Hera, and I'm like rewinding it because it's the most like sort of live action looking that you've ever seen. So.
But we talked about that the last episode. We talked about seeing them in different spots and the art being different. So I think it's the same voice, but don't quote me on it. I think Father's looking it up right now.
According to IMDb, she is Hera in Star Wars Squadrons.
Yeah, so, awesome. I have to go get an Xbox now.
No, that's awesome. I knew that Hera was in that game. But yeah, it's great to have Vanessa Marshall in it too.
Yeah.
So with Hera Syndulla back in the scene, let's jump into this episode. This is, like I said, season 4, episode 14, A Fool's Hope. It's it's more or less a setup into the final hour-long finale, if you will. So what did you guys think of this particular episode?
I like that Ezra is sort of the leader now, in a way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, I don't know if that was just my interpretation. And I noticed this time that the title of the episode is A Fool's Hope, which is very similar to A New Hope. Mm-hmm. And the plot is very similar in many ways. You've got a ragtag bunch and they're trying to kick the Empire's butt and against all odds. So, seeing it in that context and that angle, I appreciate it a little bit more. But of course, we talk so much about themes on this podcast, and I guess you could say that's kind of like the star part of Star Wars, and this was more so the wars part of Star Wars. So it was a lot of the fun action.
Yeah. I'll be honest, though, after watching the last one, A World Between Worlds, this one is, I didn't care for this one very much. It's the juxtaposition of the the kind of philosophical depth that Star Wars can go to versus the kind of popcorny light show that it can be also, and you see when you have two episodes like this just kind of smoshed together, it gets pretty intense that, I like the philosophy of Star Wars. I really do.
Yeah.
The wars, they're cool, but I like the philosophy of Star Wars.
I was reminded of, have you guys seen any of the, I've been watching it in like 10-minute chunks because that's, that's life. But the Galaxy's Edge, like documentary on Disney Plus, like the whole behind the scenes thing. And when Jay Leno, is kind of going through the whole Millennium Falcon experience, and he's talking about how he used to do the movie reviews by sending his his mother out to like review movies, and then he'd like give her a review like verbatim. And
Nice.
I think he said the first one he ever sent her out to review for the show was Star Wars, and he said she's like, you got lights coming this way and lights coming that way and noises, and who wants that? I laughed a little bit because I'm sitting there, I'm like, I guess I do, because it was fun, but it wasn't super complicated compared to the last one.
It was interesting as I was watching it, going back through it a couple times and then just kind of reading some reviews and stuff on it. Some things were pointed out to me that I thought were super important to recognize. And yeah, my first thought was like, yeah, this is action Star Wars. And coming off of A World Between Worlds, there is that juxtaposition between the two. But I also, the link, I think, it's not just between A World Between Worlds and this one, but it's the link that the finale arc makes with the entire show, is that I found that even though this is super action heavy, I still felt that relationships were at the core of these episodes because of all the various people that are involved in the ragtag group are people that Ezra has affected in some way. I'm thinking, Hondo and some of the characters that are not part of the Ghost crew.
Bizarro.
Yeah. But they're there and fighting because of Ezra and the relationship that they have with him. And so the action is sort of a result of the relationships.
Sure.
At one point, I think Hondo even says, for that kid, I would do anything or something along those lines. And like, you don't just do anything or be willing to die for, some random kid that you've only encountered a few times, but you would do that for someone.
Especially Hondo.
Right. I love him so much.
So yeah, I appreciated kind of having that realization as I watched it, because like the action is great. I mean, we all do at some level love action. That's part of Star Wars, but more so, I think we appreciate the deeper themes, the connections, the humanity, the relationships. And so I was glad to have that kind of pointed out, because that gives this episode heart for at least for my viewing of it. And it just shows the growth of Ezra. He was the one at the beginning of the entire show that he had no family, and here he is at the end with this amazing family around him that's fighting for him in a battle that is not even officially sanctioned by the Rebel Alliance.
Right. And
which
it's
was also
for him very specifically.
Yeah. Fun random fact on that note, I had put this down too, but the opening scroll of A New Hope says more or less that the Rebel Alliance had only one victory against the Empire, which was a reference to Rogue One and the Battle of Scarif. And so the finale of Rebels is also a victory, but because it wasn't officially sanctioned by the Rebel Alliance, they could still give the Rebels finale a victory. Sorry, spoiler alert there. But but they could give the Rebels show a victory over the Empire without it contradicting the opening scroll of A New Hope and what happened in Rogue One. So I thought that was also really kind of interesting.
Well, and just one other quick thing about relationships, because I think not just with Ezra, but and I suppose we probably won't get into this too much because they don't really get into it specifically in the episode that much. But the relationship between Price and Ryder Azadi and their whole background, which is explored a lot more in the speaking of Timothy Zahn, that first Thrawn novel, which I think came out like about a year before this season did. So like that's in the background there. And it ties into these interactions with Thrawn and these folks. So that too, like, there's a pretty rocky history between the two of them, that just, even though they don't go into the details in this episode or even in most of these episodes, having read those books too, I just thought that was a good example of where like you don't need that to enjoy the show. but this was my first time watching it since I had read that novel. And so now, like, as I watch it, there's like this whole texture of like, oh yeah, I know. It's like I have this inside baseball, you know, like, oh yeah, they really don't like each other even more than I thought, you know. So that's like, it's just cool the way they're doing that when they do that well.
Mm-hmm. And it's a good point too that I mean, the novels complement the movies and the TV shows so much, because you can't get into that depth of character in a 20-minute animated episode. But in a novel, you can, there's all sorts of intricacies that you can play out. So, and flesh out just the relationships and the characters. So for those of you who haven't read the books, read the books if you feel at all inclined. They are fantastic.
Or listen to them on audiobook, right?
Yes.
For free. in 3 months.
Yep. So the episode starts. This is taking place right after A World Between Worlds. So Ezra has sort of, finally learned how to live with the loss of Kanan and kind of become that new leader in the Ghost crew. But the Hera, Rex, and Agent Callus, Fulcrum, are headed to Jupa base to pick up some friends to help in their attempt to liberate Lothal. And one thing that was pointed out to me is right at the beginning of this episode, when you see Rex right away, he is wearing a helmet that is oddly similar to what you see on the Rebels on Endor in Return of the Jedi. And that was I'm assuming that was a explicit sort of reference that, and I think it's revealed in the finale too, that Rex shows up in the Battle of Endor, but there's a clear connection there. In fact, there's a character in the Battle of Endor that's bearded that may or may not be Captain Rex.
Just kind of panned past really quickly.
Yeah. In fact, Dave Filoni was saying that he didn't explicitly make that character in the movie Rex, just because he wanted to kind of leave it a little open ended. In fact, I think on the credits that character is called Nick Sant, I think. But either way, that's a nod to Return of the Jedi. And what
sorry.
Nope,
I'm just thinking back to like how they used to name characters in the original trilogy era, and Nick Sant is probably because he kind of looks like Santa Claus with the beard.
Yeah.
Like Saint Nick. Okay.
Well, Filoni
just wanted to throw that out there.
Filoni had pointed out that there wouldn't really be a reason for an old guy in a beard like that to be at the Battle of Endor unless he was Rex. So
you wonder about how efficient the Rebels are, but then you go, oh no, it was Rex. Oh, okay,
yeah,
totally makes sense for him to be there.
So for those of us that want to, we can headcanon that into Rex.
Oh yeah.
But we know that he was there, so it's totally not off base too. But anyway, so they are on their way to Jupa base, and they land on Jupa base to talk with Wolf, Gregor, two of the other clones, Ketsu, who again there's another connection to. She hasn't been in the show a whole lot, but she's a Mandalorian, a friend of Sabine's, but she's there as well, and they're there to ask for their help in helping to liberate Lothal. And of course, Hondo is there as well. And yeah, his, I can't help but relate to Hera. Like Hondo's there, and like Hera grudgingly like knows that he needs to be a part of this, but like her facial expressions are like a visual expression of what I feel. Like Hondo, I love and hate him because he's so cocky and arrogant, but he's lovable and.
Like, well, it's quite a thing to kind of have this like Jack Sparrow-esque character, but who's not just that, you know, like he's unique, and it's just he is pretty fun. He also appears in the pretty prominently, I guess, at the Galaxy's Edge, which is something I hope to see at some point.
I love the fact that he can't say the word smuggler. That's my favorite part of that scene. Where he's just like, I'm a pirate, not a the word you used.
Yeah, and yet you can't help but draw a correlation between him and Han Solo. Like, and especially in this episode. Like, but yeah, the pirate is much more romantic for his own view of himself. But he's the key. They're trying to figure out a way to get through the blockade and do it efficiently. And he knows of a way to get through the blockade, which comes into play later.
And by the way, it's Jim Cummings too, right? I mean, it's Winnie the Pooh.
I did not know that.
So how do you not love him? And all those, like, I think he did a bunch of those, like, I think he might have done like Pete on like Mickey Mouse and stuff. I mean, like, it's just that it's one of those voices where, like, I know that voice,
Darkwing Duck. He did Darkwing Duck.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
These voice actors are just so varied and amazing. And so Hondo's definitely, and he summarizes, well, I kind of put in my notes that this dialogue that happens here is sort of a summary of the show and Ezra's growth. Because Hera and Callus, they're asking for help, and Hondo makes the point that in specifically talking about Ezra, he says that boy has spirit. He reminds me of the time when there was still something you could believe in, and like that's and Ketsu says the Jedi, and Wolf and Gregor talk about following them into battles, and they can do this one more time. And Hera asks if Hondo's in, and that's where he says, "Madam, for that boy, there's nothing I would not do."
Yeah. I like this because it tells why Anakin is so central to everything, right? Because this is a kid that really, I mean, in a galaxy, in an entire galaxy, he has been able to gather this force of people around him, and it's so unique and so different that it really shows what the Jedi are capable of. And then to take that to that next level and have Anakin be like the Jedi of Jedi, right, where he's just that much more impressive than everyone, and it comes across so poorly in the movies, like especially when we see his growth in the first 3 movies. There was just so much going on politically that it was hard to capture the just sheer charisma that the Jedi have, and for them to just affect the galaxy in the way they do. But it reminds us that there is this force that's tying everything together, and these guys actually use it. They manipulate it, not for good or for evil, but they change the way that it moves around people and around things. So there's no way they just couldn't have that gravitas. They have to be impressive and be calling people to them.
I think that's a really great point to make, because it relates to just our lived life too. Like, there are certain people who just have that charisma or that ability to engage in relationships, and especially I would say in our Catholic world, our spiritual leaders often have that sort of ability, or we see them and we see their depth of person, their depth of spiritual life, and there's something that just draws us to them versus someone who is just living their life incredibly superficially and, goes from one thing to the next. There's something about the depth of someone who is firmly rooted in their faith. For the Jedi, it's they're firmly rooted in who they are as a Jedi, and the need for them to be compassionate and enter into those kind of situations. And I think and that's one of the key things about Ezra too. I mean, he's a kid, but he is able to enter into those relationships and cause that kind of connection. And we see that with him and the animals, I think, for one, and that comes into play in a very big way in the finale, but also his relationships with the other people as well. There's something about him and Kanan and Ahsoka, and I mean, heck, probably all of the Ghost crew, really, except for Chopper, maybe, but because he's a droid.
You have to love Chopper, though.
I do love Chopper. I do love Chopper.
He has a repelling quality to him at the same time.
Yes, right. So, but yeah, that's something that they can explore in a better way in a TV show, because there's just more time to develop that versus a 2-hour movie. So yeah, so Ezra's definitely the key to all of this. Back on Lothal, Ezra we see Ezra now taking on that mantle of leader, and he has a vision and knows that things are changing, and is able to get Hera on the comm and tell her and the rest of everyone that he had a vision and knows that Thrawn is coming back. And so they need to act now if they are to take the capital city back from the Empire. And we have a little bit of conflict kind of set up for us between Ryder, who is opposed to acting because they've already tried and failed. And he suggests that they lay low, reorganize, and rebuild. And Ezra, asks him to trust him. And Ryder is still pointing out that, they don't have an army. And Ezra says that they don't need an army. They just need one person. And then it cuts off to the next scene.
Oh, I was going to talk about that quote because, obviously they're referring to the governor. But at the same time, I felt like that quote just really struck me as, oh my gosh, that's what Star Wars is about, isn't it? Mm-hmm. We don't need an army. We just need one person. In the positive sense, like we need one person to make an impact to make that change. Sorry, Michael Jackson song just came into my mind. But I again, like with this whole, with A Fool's Hope, A New Hope, just kind of the basics of what Star Wars is about. And then hearing this quote, we don't need an army, we just need one person. I think ultimately that one of the messages that George Lucas would want people to walk away from Star Wars with.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
I would also throw that out there that there's an implicit connection there to The Last Jedi and like the broom boy at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
It's individuals that can make a difference. We swap to Governor Price, who just looks downright scary and mean. I've never liked her.
I think I had her as a substitute once.
She has
that feel. You're like, oh man, she's back.
There was this, I don't know if it was a series or if it was just one book. There's this children's book called like Mrs. Nelson is Here or something like that. And
she leaves and then the substitute comes in.
Yeah. No. So like Mrs. Nelson was the substitute teacher and she was like a witch. She was like so horrible. And she kind of reminds me of that.
Oh my gosh.
I don't think any of us want Governor Price to be our substitute teacher, though.
She's the substitute governor in a way.
Yeah. Well, because she basically threatens her underling with death if he doesn't find the rebels.
And he's working for an organization that she knows she might die if she doesn't go find them. Like, what?
That's the thing. She's not like from the book too, like, or from the Thrawn book with her. Like, I got the impression like she's anything but naive, and I got to give her credit. She's just like, listen to me, I will be executed. And like, she's not messing around. She's like, but before I do, or before that happens to me, like, oh boy.
But I think in Governor Price, you see what happens to a person who's greedy and power hungry. And I mean, she's okay with not being at the top of the ladder, but she wants power over Lothal. And I think that was one of the key things of the book is she wanted to become Governor Price.
Well, it's so revenge driven, because it's like her family's mining business is taken over, and it's just this beginning of like, I will do whatever it takes, to get back here, and it's just like this myopic kind of
So I mean, I think that's one of the visual cues that we get. Like this is what revenge and what being greedy and power hungry and doing that, what that does to a person. Because we see her embody that in this particular story arc. And then Ryder calls her on an old pre-imperial frequency, which of course he would have because he was the governor at one point. So he would have been there prior to the Empire's occupation. And he offers to betray the rebels because he would rather betray the rebels and get amnesty than to join the rebels and get captured and go to prison.
They set that up so well. Yeah.
I was waiting for him to ask it.
Did you guys believe that?
No, it was pretty obvious that it was like although they did a decent job with making him be on the outs in that conversation that he had with Ezra, right? Where he's like, it's going to take an army to do this. And Ezra's like, we only need one person. And you kind of knew where this was going.
Yep.
So it wasn't a huge surprise that this was where it stepped to next. But I thought it was an okay job moving the script forward, really.
Well, I'm pretty sure that when I watched it first, I was like, what's going on? So
he's betraying.
Maybe I'm just more trusting than you, Thomas. But
I saw the double crossing.
Well, he's hard to read too, because as far I was thinking of voices too, because this is of course Clancy Brown,
right?
So it's like. He's Mr. Krabs, but he's also Bird, the Deveronian and Mandalorian, all these other characters now that he's been. Wasn't he Savage Opress too? I think he was. Yeah,
he was.
So I think he's mostly bad guys. Or
he plays. He's got a good bad guy voice, right?
He's the Highlander bad guy from the original movie. It's like but he's Mr. Krabs. He's not bad. He's just gruff.
He's also.
I don't.
He's also he's on a Zoom call, so it's easier to hide, body language.
Right.
Hey, thank goodness we don't have like full body holographic Zoom calls, because that's just it's too much to think about and make sure that my posture's right. And
just imagine.
And then you can't just wear your shorts. You got to put on pants and
Yeah,
right. Speaking of costumes, though, I think it's really interesting that after this point in the episode, he's got a hood on for the rest of the episode. Like nobody else really changes very much, but he's got that cowl that makes him look kind of dark and shady.
That's what I picked up on, like unconsciously.
Yeah.
Visual cues.
Angela, I have to come to your defense here, because when I watched it, I think initially I thought no. But then like later on during the actual battle, when he is not participating and he's hiding away, and then even when Rook doesn't attack him, I was like, oh, okay, maybe he actually did. So yeah, I think there was enough misdirect that I got confused. So
and in your defense as well, Angela, if you've noticed, I haven't really answered the question technically. I'm like, you know who did his voice? No.
It's all from a certain point of view here.
Yes,
from a certain point of view.
So he, at least, is presenting himself as betraying the rebels, and Governor Price is not going to pass up on an opportunity to get the location of the rebels. So she gets the location, and we jump back to Ezra, who is talking with Sabine, and they're talking about the Lothwolf connection, which was another thing that has been important to the series as a whole, and particularly this season with the wolves in particular. And Ezra can't really explain the connection, but he just knows that they're there when he needs them, and that's how it's always been, and that's exactly how it plays out in this episode too. So, but again, I think it's cool that they're pointing out the relationship root there that he has with them, and then they howl. And it's almost like a warning symbol or a warning signal to the fact that the Empire's coming, which of course they do immediately arrive on the scene. And we have, probably one of the biggest action sequences in the entire show, probably, maybe besides the finale, but I need to rewatch the finale yet. I just have a random few things written down for these things. I'm not going to go blow by blow through these action scenes. But
thank you. Wow, how deep are we going to get here?
It's like first he shoots to the left. And then...
How much time do we have for this recording?
Play. That'd be a different podcast.
So I just mentioned things like I really loved the scenes with Sabine and her jetpack, and those were pretty
much
awesome.
So. I like she says, I'll take out the rocket troopers. And then she takes off, and one of my kids was like, wait, she's going to get them all? And I'm like, dude, she's Mandalorian. Yeah, she's going to get them all.
And Rook joins the fight. And I was just going to point out, I don't think we've ever mentioned this before, but they're actually a Legends species that have been brought into the canon, because they were a bodyguard assassin created by Timothy Zahn with his original Thrawn trilogy. And so they've been brought into canon. They're a little bit less stealthy, I think, or a little bit louder from what I've envisioned them in the canon world than in the Legends, but that's totally beside the point. So Rook is there, and he's he and Ezra kind of have a showdown between the two of them. We have a pretty awesome scene with Chopper. He falls off one of those, like, there's a ledge there. He falls off, and there's a stormtrooper that decides to go check it out and looks over the edge, and then Chopper just reaches up and pulls him off, and then
grabs
flies
his
back
toe,
up.
pulls it in by the toe,
and then like sarcastically laughs and flies away. Like, yeah,
I couldn't help, like, I was watching it this time and he did that, and I was just like, dude, you just killed a guy.
Yeah.
I was like, that's pretty cold. No,
it wasn't so much his fault as it is all the OSHA hazards around these sites, where there's just like these pits in the ground with no railing. Okay.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, they, like, Rook falls down, and I'm just like, how many times do we have to establish in Star Wars? It's like there's something with gravity. I don't know what, but like it's not. They're not done. Like, stop throwing people down pits.
But that's what happened to him at the end of this too. So
yes.
There's a chance,
right? Maybe. Yes.
We go back to Hera on the Ghost, and they get the transmission from Chopper that things are going south back on Lothal, and so they want to get there as quickly as possible. And they arrive in the Lothal system, but have to get past the blockade. And this is where Hondo comes to the rescue, which his dialogue is just fantastic. He tells,
I've done it plenty of times.
Yeah.
I know, I only crashed. I've done it plenty of times.
He's like, technically, it's just outside a hyperspace lane,
right? But it's just something that I could easily hear Han Solo saying the same exact thing. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah. We'll make this work. Like, so yeah.
It takes a certain mentality to be a smuggler, right? Like, you got to have that. I don't know. I'm flying by the seat of my pants. It'll work.
Well, and that you trust that luck is going to be on your side. Right. More often than not.
Well, and I love it. And I immediately thought of like that line, one of my favorites of his in The Force Awakens, and he's like, we'll get you to the planet. She's like, Han, how? He's like, if I told you, you wouldn't like it.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't even tell her anymore.
Yep. Yeah. Same exact thing. And yet that's what works. So he has them go right next to a hyperspace lane in order to basically hide themselves onto an incoming freighter. To sneak past the blockade, but that's a little bit later in the episode. So at this point, he's just getting them in position to do that and telling them that they're probably not going to get hit by an incoming freighter out of hyperspace. Back on Lothal, the fight is continuing, and yeah, just same sorts of things. Some really great scenes. At this point, this is where Rook is knocked off the ledge by Ezra, and of course he survives and climbs back up. Zeb has his moment to shine with a heavy blaster cannon that he shoots at some of the Imperial ships. And then he runs out of ammo, and so he just throws it against some stormtroopers and knocks them out. So that's very typical Zeb. And then we go back to the Ghost crew as they're trying to get past the blockade. And again, with the Han Solo connection, Hondo's tactic is to attach to this freighter that does come in and completely powered down so they can get through the scanner and get cleared through the blockade. And it just screamed, The Empire Strikes Back. Anyways, he pulls a Han Solo maneuver. I know that's exactly what I was trying to get at. But
actually, this one was a Boba Fett maneuver.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when Boba Fett first enters, he drops off the back of a Star Destroyer and grabs onto and comes out of the trash, and that's kind of it's before Han does his number, or actually it might be consecutively with the two of them, like they both do it.
Well, definitely Boba Fett did it expertly enough that the Millennium Falcon didn't notice him.
Exactly.
So, okay, so then we can
which
claim
I do have
that,
to laugh because I know that they can't, like powers off, no scanning. I'm like, isn't anyone looking out the cockpits of these things?
No. Why would you look out the cockpit?
Like I'm laughing. I'm just imagining some Imperial, that's why I love like a lot of like Seth Green Star Wars things and stuff like what's off screen, or just like the idea of like an Imperial lieutenant that's like sipping his coffee, looking out the window.
Exactly,
like,
that's what I'm seeing too. Sipping his coffee.
There's a ship on the side of that ship. Like anybody, like like they don't notice it.
Never happens.
Oh my.
too much red tape. He probably had to go report it, and then it had to go through like 10 different
DPS reports.
Oh, that was in a canon book, wasn't it? Where someone was like, they knew they were supposed to report something, but there was so much red tape. Or maybe that was in a short story from a certain point of view. Anyway, I think that's what it was. I think there was a short story. Have y'all read that?
I don't think so.
I'm gonna have to look it up now.
That's got to be there.
Okay, yeah. I think it was like a stormtrooper who saw something, and then he knew he was supposed to report it, but there was so much paperwork that it was just like it goes through he files the paperwork. That's what it is. Okay, anyways, yes, so it's actually the paperwork that you're reading. That's what I remember. Okay,
that's so funny.
Good story.
I'll have to check that out.
Check it out.
So what you're saying is there probably is a stormtrooper that noticed this, that just decided it was too much work.
Yes.
So with that, negligent stormtrooper, the ghost does indeed sneak through the blockade and get down to Lothal to help. And Hondo pridefully remarks how it was all him, and there was no need to thank him for his services for that. Back on Lothal, Rook is back up, and this is where he sees Ryder and doesn't attack him. And so that was at that point that I was like, maybe Ryder is truly betraying them at this point. But they take out the ore crawler, so the big ship that they were kind of piloting on Lothal, and it begins to fall. And so everybody has to abandon ship and climb onto the rock formations that are right next to it. And at that point, they are all captured. And Rook informs Price that they've captured them, which is exactly what the rebels wanted to do, because that's what finally draws Governor Price to come down herself to take control of the situation. And that's where the double cross happens. So thankfully we weren't waiting too long for that and thinking Ryder was a bad guy. But first she thanks Ryder for his help in rooting out the rebels, and then Ezra's comlink beeps, and Ryder is privileged to tell Price what that means, and that was Hera coming in to save the day.
I just love the way Ezra's just, there's something about that line. Yeah. Do you want me to tell her? Or do you... Right. Just delicious.
And, yeah. So, I mean, that it's clear there that they were all in it from the start. Like Ezra didn't doubt Ryder, at all. So that was all definitely part of the plan. That was when the scene cut to Governor Price, and we didn't see the end of that initial conversation between Ezra and Ryder and the group. And then I just put in my notes for this part. I just said chaos ensues.
Yeah, pretty much. So I'll tell you one thing that I really like about this episode from start to finish is the sense of scale that they have. So there's you see the AT-AT at the beginning that's got the platform on top of it, and when the ghost lands on it, you get the sense of how big a starship is. Yeah. Compared to, just a walker. And the walkers are huge. And then when they come in on this scene, all these drop ships that they've been in, which are fairly big, it's a fairly big ship. But then when the ghost comes in and just starts tearing through them with the blaster cannons that they have on them, the difference between a ship that's made for travel on a planet and a travel between the stars is made very, very clear.
Yeah. I think in the Rebels Recon, there was a producer who was talking about how this was almost like mini movie scale, because normally they don't have this many sets and characters and ships and everything because it takes forever to render. But they did it because it was needed for the story. So kudos to the whole crew.
Yeah. And I mean, the animation for this was just fantastic because they've got all the different characters, and they're doing a really good job of kind of highlighting each of the main characters as much as they can in their own role, and giving them all their moment to shine, and especially with this huge fight scene, and so there's a number of things that happen, and which are just really cool. I mean, we've got Hondo and his Ugnaught partner, and I'm blanking on his name.
It's like Mart or something like that. Or
I had it written down.
Oh man.
Melch. I had it written down. There it is. There it is.
There you go. It's funnier
like
than the
Belch.
one I was. Yeah, exactly.
But like,
He's
you
a
know,
little pig.
So yeah.
That's what my 3-year-old decided. Oh, it's pig. It's pig. Every time he came on the stage, it's a pig. It's a pig.
But you know, they have their moment to take out one of the land ships, and Hera's got her maneuver where she knocks out one of them with the ghost, which is super cool.
Oh, by the way, can I before I forget, because when she did that, it just instantly reminded me of Solo.
Yep.
And I was wondering, I was like, wait a minute, when did this? And I looked it up, and this came out in March 2018.
Yep.
Like 2 months before Solo. So I was just thinking to myself, I was like, so Hera technically, I mean, in terms of when someone saw that in a movie or in a show or whatever, I guess she beat Han to it.
She got
but
it first.
I don't know what the production timeline was or when that was written first. I don't know.
There was probably some crosstalk there, and somebody was like,
I think so.
That's a great idea. We should totally do that.
Yeah, he can't be the only one that's done that before.
Right?
But I'm thinking within universe, those events are happening roughly at the. I mean, well, probably not roughly. I imagine Han Solo did it first in terms of internal timeline.
5 years or so before this,
right?
Probably.
Because this is happening really close to Rogue One,
right?
So
right.
I think it's within a year or two. They said, yeah.
His stuff's happening more towards the Clone Wars, right? His stuff's.
Isn't it 10? I think Solo's like 10 years after Episode 3.
Wars.
I think. I saw something right. Or 8 or 10 years. Yeah, it's like in between.
Yeah. Either way, I think it's fair to say that Hera did not pick this maneuver up from Han Solo.
No.
So so we're not diminishing Hera's ingenuity and her awesomeness as a pilot. Ezra has everybody fall back into the caves, and we have Ezra's hero pose with
that was awesome.
with the Loth Wolves, which was really cool when Rook goes
satisfying.
in. Yeah. And again, like that image it encapsulates who Ezra is and his connection. And so, yeah.
Where's your army? That line from Rook, where's your army now? And he's just lights up his lightsaber. There they are.
Yeah. And those wolves are quite vicious. Like, wow. I was kind of blown away by how effective and how violent they took out all the.
It's like, man, this is a kid show.
Yeah. There was one scene I got really worried because it's like the clones were watching him and talking about how it's like being back with the brothers again, you know? And then like two wolves grab this stormtrooper from opposite ends, and I'm like, whoa, this could get bad fast if they start pulling apart.
Yep. So the wolves throw Rook off the ledge again. One of them
for some reason.
One captures Price, and the rest of them just continue to take out stormtroopers. I also put in my notes here that the music is super intense for all of this, which was cool. And we get the dad pun. Gregor tells Wolf that he has his wolf pack back.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so the wolves managed to take everybody out, and the stormtroopers all surrender. And I loved how Price begs Ezra to not let the wolf eater.
Don't let her eat me.
Kind of a fitting.
Yeah, it's like you expect her, at least I expect her to say like kill me, but she says eat me, and that just makes it more comical.
Yeah. So they win, the rebels win this Battle in kind of the setup for the finale. And the episode ends with Hera telling Ezra that somehow against all the odds you did it. And again, that's very Star Wars. You know, the one person against the Empire, and you can do it. But again, like Ezra at this point takes the time to point out that he couldn't have done it without everybody who helped.
Right.
And he recognizes everyone. And then he ends with, of course, Hondo wants to get paid and move on. But he's also very much invested. and asks if they're done. And Ezra says, not until we chase the Empire from Lothal and show the galaxy that for all their power, they can be defeated. And that's where the episode ends, in the lead up to the final battle for the liberation of Lothal, which we will talk about in a couple weeks, or at least part of it in a couple weeks. Anything that you guys wrote down that we didn't cover over this episode?
Just that Ezra as a leader is doing a good job of playing to everybody's strengths.
Mm-hmm.
That, you had Hera up in the sky, and you had Hondo doing his thing, and, the wolves doing their thing. Sabine was doing her thing. It just seemed like, and of course we saw this all the time because the Ghost Crew is a great team, but I think in his planning, he got Ryder to be the bait, and he knew that would be effective. And so it kind of made me think about how Star Wars actually uses that tactic very well, whereas the Empire versus the Rebellion is much more here's what we're going to do. Everybody does this, I guess when I would read like the novels about the Empire, yes, they would do like testing as far as, strengths and stuff, but it's seen as very uniform.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody kind of is in the same suit and they're doing the same task. And, if you're in this stormtrooper helmet, then you do the stormtrooper thing. And, if you're Governor Price, you do that kind of thing. And, there's less individuality, I guess. So just in the Rebellion, you see that individuality shine, and just the importance of how everyone is different. And that can be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
We can work towards one goal, defeating evil with all of our different strengths and abilities.
Which kind of ties back to the reason that Rex is in a different helmet in these last couple of episodes, and as he goes forward with the rebellion, it reveals his face. It shows who he is. It humanizes him in a way that the stormtrooper armor dehumanizes everybody on the Imperial side.
Yeah, and he has a new role now. He's more of a he's an experienced I guess, what do you call those people? Like the word is, I'm not getting the word. What is the word? Like when you
liaison?
No, when you use your experience as
a mentor,
like to benefit someone else.
A mentor,
benefactor. That's more, I think of like money. No.
I don't know. Anyway, that's what I mean.
Teacher.
It'll come to me like at the most
yeah.
inopportune time, but yeah. The point is that he's in a new role now.
Yeah, and this whole thing, yeah, it kind of captures that feel, and I think you see the essence of Star Wars at play in this episode, which is really cool to see. Any other final concluding thoughts?
To tie back into that, I think that one of the things that really makes the Force users very interesting is seeing their unique calling in the Force. And you see Rey is a very different Force user than Kylo Ren, is a very different Force user than Ezra Bridger, is a very different Force user than than Kanan and Jarrus. They're all called to something different in the Force, and even though they all do the same thing, they're very attached to it in their own unique way. And so nobody's like Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is Obi-Wan, and that's such a cool thing to see when you tie it into the rest of the themes of the Rebels versus the Empire. The Empire is very all about the hegemony, right? Everything's the same. We want to make everything uniform. Everything needs to fit a very specific set of rules. And the Alliance wasn't like that. The Republic wasn't like that. The Republic was very much about people expressing their freedoms, and it had its problems. It had all of its issues with the Senate, and everything was bogged down by red tape and all that kind of stuff, but they were still allowing people to be themselves. And the Empire came in and kind of just squashed that and even in the lead up to the Empire squashing that, you saw how everything was trying to be codified and put into little boxes and made to be a certain way. And then you get the clones. And that's like the perfect example of what the Empire is. Everybody needs to be the same. We've picked the best. We're designing you to be the best. And this is the box you're going to fit in. Whereas the beauty of the Force generally, and specifically the rebellion and how it fights against the Empire, is that uniqueness.
And that just speaks into just human life too. That we should embrace what makes us, individuals and unique in our own gifts and our own talents. And just because I'm not like you and you're not like me, that's not a bad thing. But it's something to recognize the gifts in each other and to use those for the glory of God and in the way that God envisioned you individually and specifically to do.
And even with the clones, they turned out to be pretty different too. Some of them, Yeah,
which I think we've talked about that, but that's one of the great beauties of the Clone Wars series is you do get to see the humanity behind the masks, where the movies are less able to get into that.
He started as a cookie cutter and he ended up as Nick Sant or whatever his name is. I think it is Rex. We'll see.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Well, then that's it from us. And listeners, what did you think of this particular episode of Star Wars Rebels, the penultimate of the entire show? Definitely let us know, and you can email us or comment on our Facebook or Twitter page to let us know what you thought. And you can email us at starwars@sqpn.com. And you can find StarQuest on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia and on Twitter at SQPN. And now, of course, we'd like to take a moment, like we always do, to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create The Secrets of Star Wars, including this week, Adam H., Philip M., Dennis M., Rebecca C., and Donald F. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Star Wars and all the shows that we produce here at StarQuest. And definitely, if you'd like to join them, you can do so by visiting sqpn.com/give. Also, of course, be sure to subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or you can follow us on the SQPN YouTube channel and just be sure to click the bell to get notifications for new episodes. And you can find any and all previous episodes of The Secrets of Star Wars by going to sqpn.com/Star Wars. And we will be back in 2 weeks where we will be reviewing the first part of the Rebels finale by reviewing the first half of that 40-minute long episode, Family Reunion and Farewell. So we'll be taking that in 2 different chunks. So we'll be looking at the first half in 2 weeks and then the next half in the next episode after that. So until then, Angela Cialana, thank you for joining me and sharing The Secrets of Star Wars.
It's been a pleasure.
Thomas Sanjurjo, thanks for joining us this evening.
It's good to be here.
And Mike Creevy, thank you as well for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
And once again, I'm Father Andrew Kinstetter. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.